We had week 3 of the Oceanic League play last week. It was obviously a massive week because that was the week, I guess, that certain teams proved themselves into the top or put themselves into basically guaranteed top 4, and a couple of teams as well knocked themselves completely out. And I have to say, those teams knocked themselves out. It wasn't really anyone else doing it.
Yeah, it was a very interesting week. Obviously, now getting to the final couple of weeks, it's very interesting. Obviously, the standings are sort of balancing themselves out, working themselves out. So obviously, we'll take a look at the results and tell you a bit more about it, I suppose.
Yeah, at the start of the day, there were 2 teams on 3-0, one team on 2-0. The two teams on 3-0 were Justice and Icon, so they were looking good, but they were going to have a matchup at the end of the day to decide who would be undefeated, and Renegade/Chiefs were the 2-0 team who had a chance of going 4-0 as well. In terms of match number 1, we had Edge versus Out of Order, and you got to have a look at all of these clips in depth. What did you think of the gameplay?
That was a terrible series, Yummy, to put it the best. There was a lot of mistakes. You might see the next highlight now, might even be an own goal, I dare say. Here it comes up. I mean, Decker just panicking here, just donking it in his own net. That pretty much summed up the series, but I think that it basically came down to the team that made the least mistakes and the team that capitalized on the other team's mistakes, and that eventually turned out to be Order.
Yeah, I really didn't feel like Edge were having the best day that day either. I guess the shame is for Edge is that if they take that win, they're straight back into the potential top 4. But Out of Order obviously needed that win. They're 100% after losing to 1E, after losing to Icon. This was a must win. I think that may even have gone into the roughness and the panic that we saw there, that they just probably had a lot of nerves on the line. They still were able to bring out some plays like this in overtime.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a credit to Order. I mean, they obviously didn't play as well as they probably wanted to or thought they could, but they still got the win, and that's what mattered. They had to get that series win, and it doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you get that win, get those points.
This is the only match of the day as well for Out of Order, so a little bit of context for them during the week. They also lost to Manlet in the Gauntlet, though Manlet had an absolute tear, but that's not great signs for Out of Order either.
No, I think that they definitely went into the season with a lot of confidence. I know they were playing well, whether you'd call it a honeymoon or something like that, but definitely they probably aren't going as well as they're expecting, or they did expect. And now I guess they've got that win, but they've still got their backs against the wall, don't they, Yummy? They really need to pull through in these last couple of weeks.
Well, the worst part for them is even dropping that one game against Edge puts them in a bad spot, because the way it looks like it's going to pan out is there will be 3 teams tied on 4 series wins unless some big upset happens, which means that the 3-0 loss against 1E right at the start is completely blowing their season in terms of tiebreakers, so they need to really pick it up the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to Edge as well. For watching the series, they certainly had a lot of chances. They created a lot of pressure. They didn't play too bad, Yummy, but they didn't really just put away those chances, and then they go down the other end, obviously, and Order were able to capitalise, and a couple of overtimes there you saw, so, could have gone either way. Could definitely been a 3-2 maybe get another game, but Order ended up getting to win 3-1.
Yeah, they've certainly had plenty of chance to improve Edge as well. Like, they've taken it, and they have improved across the season. A little bit too little too late. Obviously, they were starting off probably at a very clear number 7, and they might be able to finish above that, but it looks kind of tough at this point in time. But it does lead us into series number 2, which was Edge up against Mprox.
Take it away, Yummy. Take it away.
This was the worst series of all time. It went to game 5. It was thrown by both teams. Mprox had the lead. They got 2. They had the 2-0 lead, and then they threw it away twice. They got reverse swept by throwing twice, choking in the last 2 games. They had every chance of taking this. There was a game with 5 kickoff goals. 5 kickoff goals in one, not the series, in one game. And that was after I said they needed to clean up and stop having so many kickoff goals. It was both way, 3 for Edge and 2 for Emprox in that game. I think the previous one had 2 each way. And there were 32 goals across the entire series. It's going to go down in history as my most hated match of all time.
I mean, and you can't really pick out if one team sort of threw or the other team, stepped it up and built pressure. Because
no way, Emprox threw so hard at the 0 second.
It was so back and forth that I don't honestly. How did you even commentate? How do you cast that sort of series? What do you do in that sort of situation with so many kickoff goals and so many bad moments?
Well, luckily I wasn't casting it. I was analysing it. So I was just basically saying everything's going wrong. What's going on here? It looked like Emprox was going to take it, but it is really difficult. Props to Jim and Wolfie, who did manage to at least cast. Look at that! All right, Edge. All right, Bango.
Oh, dear.
That was really important because they're a goal down. But look what happens. Emprox are in the lead with 3 seconds left on the clock, and they panic, and they're all up, and it's just a goal.
I mean, to one of the team's credit, I'd say that often if you play a team, who's a bit random, you often play worse. I think you agree with that, Yummy. But the problem in this situation is I'm not too sure which team actually, brought that randomness, or they both did, because it just I don't know what that was. I'd love to hear the comms or something during that series, especially in the last 30 seconds there for Emprox.
There were moments like that. There were brilliant moments. And look at this. Emprox, game 5, 2 goals up. They can't lose from here,
Game over.
surely.
Game over.
It's done. They've won it. But I will say it was entertaining, and probably because of the badness of the overall series, that it was just fun to watch. It was a little bit crazy. There were overtimes. There were comebacks. There was that final goal by Bango as well that could have been exactly the same as his last one that sat on the line for a long time, but it managed to go in.
Very fitting that it was in the first 14 seconds of overtime as well. That didn't take long. You'd nearly call that a kickoff goal as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's basically a kickoff goal. I think it went a little bit one way and the other, but overall, it was the other way. How's the phone going, by the way, CJ?
Actually, I was playing with this. I got like a fruit tingle wrapper, and I've actually spilt it on my desk. So I was just trying to wipe it, but no, we're all good. We're back in the
Oh no, that's almost as big a disaster as that series was. But that does mean that Edge almost certainly. That was okay. Let me put it in context. That was probably a $500 match. The winner probably got $750 from that, because from here on out, I cannot see either of these two teams taking a series win. They might cause an upset, which would help, maybe even give them an extra $1,000. But the difference between 8th and 7th place is $500. So, yeah.
Have you seen a worse match for those kind of stakes? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, well,
have you seen the worst match ever? I think you just said it.
I said it was the worst match ever. I mean, there was obviously like some interesting ones. Even this season, Team Esper up against Manlet was kind of similar feeling to that, where it went to Game 5 overtime to qualify. This has been the season for reverse sweeps as well. Not even just in the Oceanic Masters, where that was an extra reverse sweep just then on the tally. Week 2 we had 2, but even in the Gauntlet, just after you reverse swept Out of Order reverse swept you. Out of Order also reverse swept Renegades in the Gauntlet. It's been one of those seasons.
It's been quite random. The Gauntlet has produced a lot of upsets, and as even we saw last night, Yummy, or 2 nights ago, we saw Manlet really step up.
Yep.
Smacked Order out of the park, or Out of Order, and Daze was pretty happy about it. Took straight to Twitter after that, and I guess they caught us a bit off guard as well. We thought surely they're not actually playing decently, and to their credit, they actually look like a decent team. So I feel like they should definitely be in league play. They through the qualifiers, I guess, when it mattered, but you have to perform when it matters, Yummy. Isn't that right?
Exactly. I know another team that weren't able to perform in RLCS Season 3. I think they were known as Trident Esports, who got reverse
You're
swept
gonna
in
bring
the
that
upper
up, yeah.
bracket and then Game 5 overtimed in the lower bracket. Very similar story there because those guys were on their way to RLCS. They had their 15 tickets in their hand. Dream A was ready to go, but they just failed at the first hurdle, unfortunately.
I mean, how do you even compete on a team if you got Dream A in it? Really, I mean,
Yeah, I couldn't
it was
imagine.
a goner from the get go. So, oh well, we're here now.
Yeah, it's a shame. But you made it in the end. Some of your teammates, one of your teammates didn't quite. But if we have a look at the next game at least, let's get past this. Oh, and for those who didn't know, the context around Manlet is they didn't make league play, and they're now in the gauntlet as the number 3 team. So, huge performance. Think of any kind of like RLRS team making a run against all of the RLCS teams. And if you're in North America, that gets you to the World Championship. So, match 3, Chiefs versus Mprox, now known as Renegades, but that back then they were the Chiefs. This one was an interesting series as well because in terms of this, obviously Chiefs are 100% easily expected to get this. They're even maybe expected to 6-0 the day and basically guarantee themselves. But they weren't looking so good against Mprox.
Yeah, I think that everyone sort of rubbed out that, they'll be versing Mprox and Espa. That's a 6-0. Forget about the day. This will be a quick 3-0 warm-up. But it wasn't as much of a demolition job this week for Chiefs as we'd expect or as we've seen in the past. Whether that was just they, took the foot off the pedal a little bit. But Mprox, I'd say they showed a bit more fight, Yummy, than what we've seen from other teams against Chiefs or Renegades.
And Zen was having a really rough day, especially in this Mprox series. You just saw him miss in front of net, which put the ball in the first game. And he was really struggling. But the good thing, I think, for Chiefs was that both Kami and Torsos were playing quite well. You saw a really good passing play. Well, massive props to Mprox. Like, even a Chiefs that isn't performing at their best, you're not expecting Mprox to take anything close. And once it gets to game 3, I think it was either overtime or it was a really close game. Yeah, they took it to at least a tie game within the last minute. And they almost took that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's full credit to them. Torsos and Kami, I feel like they can pretty much carry most teams against sort of the bottom 4 in OCE. And Mprox put up a fight. I mean, Zen wasn't playing too well, but he's still a very good player. Compared to obviously his best is very good, but when he's not playing well, he's still competent. I mean, he has his moments, but it's still a formidable lineup, Yummy. So credit to Mprox. I nearly took a game off them. That would have been, I wouldn't say disastrous for Chiefs, but obviously they're looking to 3-0, 6-0. They hadn't dropped a game yet in league play, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, they were 6-0 going in.
So yeah, they were 6-0. So they obviously didn't want to drop that game, and Mprox nearly got it off them. So credit to Mprox. They're improving. They need to stick at it. Well, depending on what Eli does, of course, if they decide to actually practice. But a couple of players on the team, Spidoge and Leduc, they keep at it. Maybe get a new third if Eli doesn't want to practice for next season.
Yeah.
And who knows?
Yeah, I can certainly see them being a much bigger team next season. You see the passing plays. They're great on the attack. I think their defense is certainly where it's lacking because they haven't got that practice in. But I think there was a very interesting note about that series. As far as I know, the first and only time this has ever happened in RLCS, Torsos scored a hat-trick of hat-tricks. So he scored a hat-trick every single game across all 3 games, including a final goal to win them the last game, which was like a dunk over defense. And I think that's pretty hard to beat. I think he's got 6 hat-tricks this season.
I mean, I think we heard him say during the week or on your previous stream, Yummy, that he said he was going to go for the golden striker. Obviously, Zen wasn't playing too well. I believe he was the golden striker before that.
Yep.
And Torsos, bang, 9 goals, 3 games. You can't really do much more, to be honest, on the offensive side of things. So
I don't know. I
good
don't
on
think
Tors.
Torsos would be happy. 3 goals a game. He probably wants 4.
Yeah, he's
knowing Tors.
never satisfied.
Yeah. Game number 4, of course. Now this one was the real spicy one. Probably the best match of the day. Obviously, seeing massive mistakes still coming out from Zen at the beginning of this game. But Chiefs and Espa was interesting. Espa, of course, have that Game 5 overtime loss against Out of Order that could have really put their season ahead. And another big Game 5 loss, if I recall. But this one was really tough for them. Chiefs obviously were wanting to 3-0 to secure themselves, and they lost the first game.
Yeah, I guess Chiefs didn't really change much from the first series. I think they just came up against a bit better opposition than Emprox, and they were willing to capitalise on Zen's mistakes and some mistakes from Kami and Torsos. I mean, you've got Outlast and Daezu. Those guys can really do anything on their day. Problem is, they'll also just completely shit the bed as well sometimes. So
like Kami just there.
Yeah, like Kami just there. So, I mean, obviously those mistakes happen, and in this case, compared to the last game, Esper really capitalised on pretty much every opportunity there where there was mistakes. So Chiefs shat the bed a little bit. I wouldn't say that they, choked or something. I just think they were a little bit off. Zen was a little bit off. That might be putting off the rest of the team, Yummy. And when teams start scoring goals, then there's a little bit more pressure. And the more you miss, the more you're hesitating next time you go for the ball.
Well, I really credited Chiefs / Renegades here with a massive comeback, because in Game 4 they went 4-0, and then in Game 5 they had another, I think it was a 5-2, but 2 of the goals that were scored against them were in the last 10 seconds or something like that, where, you can excuse people once they've already got the win. But, this was showing how dominant Chiefs really can be at the end of the day. It felt comfortable at the end. What was probably very frustrating about Espa is very similar to your Game 1 against Justice Esports. They sit in the net and they jump for every ball, and if they just happen to get every single save, it just goes against you. So you don't end up getting the goals that you really thought you were meant to, and then that could have spiraled out the series. Luckily, I think for the Chiefs, they brought it back.
Yeah, I mean, frustration certainly sinks in when you're tossing shot after shot on net and they're just flying off the roof of the net, saving everything. And I think that causes overcommits from Chiefs if they're getting a little bit frustrated and a little bit impatient, wanting to score. So that can certainly be a factor. And it really showed the last couple of games they really put them away. Pretty much didn't let Esper score for the last 2 games. So credit to them for coming back and staying undefeated. So good work.
Yeah, Espa, though, that's a big loss for them, because coming in, they looked really good. In the gauntlet, they were able to make it into top 4. They were able to take down teams like Justice, and sure, they struggled against the top 4, but realistically, the top 3, but realistically, they just needed to get into that top 4. But we've talked about it. Cobo had a lot of nerves at the start of the season. I think that really got their start off terribly, and it wasn't until week 3 last week that he felt more comfortable against the Chiefs. I think that's a really good match for him, because it's kind of like that free loss normally that you're like, oh, okay, we can lose this. If we take the win, it's great. And maybe that even went against them when they got that second game and they're like, oh, we can win this. But yeah, that puts them in a position after that series where they then would have to win every series after that to, have the rightful chance of qualifying. So 1-E against Espa came up next, and 1-E are in a much better position than Espa. If they can take this win, they're in a very good spot. If Espa take the win, then they're just holding on.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the first game, or the first match with Chiefs and Espa. They took them to 5 games. I guess everyone's thinking, hang on a minute. If they can take Chiefs to 5 games, surely they can beat 1-E. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. Whether they gave their all in the first series, Yummy, or they maybe treated this as a little bit of an easier matchup, I'm not too sure. But maybe the Chiefs just wore them down the end. Those last two games were pretty tough on them, but it started off pretty close, and 1NE got that early goal, and then I guess 1NE really capitalised, and I think that they are a better team. Their Delusions obviously got a lot more experience. They've got more experience in high pressure situations, and they ended up running away with the series.
I definitely think as well there was, that luck factor I was talking about, where you go up for a lot of these balls in defense, and if you just get the right save at the right time, if you manage to clutch out every single save, it works out well. I think against 1NE, Team Espa didn't quite have those. They'd go up for the same saves, but the odd one would slip through. And these games weren't super one-sided. They were reasonably close. Those couple of goals could have made the difference between them winning and losing not just a couple of games, but even the entire series. But also, it does give context of maybe how badly Renegades/Chiefs were playing in terms of being able to set up their plays too. But it was a massive showing from 1NE. A 3-0 considering they're likely coming into the tiebreaker scenario, the 4-win tiebreaker. Puts them at such a good position. They're now easily the number one team in terms of that tiebreaker. They're more likely to make top 4 than both Justice and Out of Order.
Yeah, obviously they 3-0'd Order as well. So if it does come down to what do you call it? The game differential, and then head-to-head, you want to call it. Obviously, 1NE have the upper advantage, have the advantage there. But credit to them, Espa. Obviously, disappointing for them. They definitely got close to a lot of teams. They had a lot of game 5s. They had 3 game 5s, I believe, throughout the season. Just trying to have a look. Yeah, they got 3-0'd by Justice, but I mean they got close to a lot of teams, and
yeah,
they are a better team than I guess.
Than the standings.
Than the standings show, I'd say. I mean, you compare them to sort of Emprox or Edge, and you definitely have Esper as the better team of those two. And unfortunately, they're not going to be able to make top 4. But
I mean, there's the slimmest of chances, but basically, it's not there.
Yeah, but it's a good experience. I'm not too sure. Obviously, Daisy and Outlast have been around the scene for a while. It's good to see them come back together. I'm not sure if they need just someone with a bit more experience on the team where they can find that. I'm not sure. But they're a young team. They definitely could have won some games that went either way in the game 5, and you might be talking about them making top 4, but unfortunately we're not. So we'll have to move on.
Yeah, I think Cobo as well, great new player on that team who does have the potential. You always look at those players who had a decent first season, because it's not your first season, it's the second season that really counts. And so maybe we'll see more of him for sure next season. And of course, Espa can still play to maybe even make 5th place, and that could be, still a massive prize pool, still some great acclaim, I guess, to that. But they can only get 3 series wins, with the 1NE obviously well on their way. But that, of course, leads us to the final series of the day, and I'm going to let you take this one away. It was Icon up against Justice in a 4-game match.
Yeah, I started off probably one of the most frustrating game 1s I've ever played in my life. I just one miss from me there early on, absolutely pantsed it. Just got my pants pulled down on the wall there, but we see the goal. We got the equaliser, and then basically for 3 minutes straight, we tried to shoot at them, and they saved everything, and then they got a counter-attack goal. So wasn't ideal, but we just kept grinding it out after game 1. We threw the game, I guess. We lost 3-1, but by the end of it, we were pretty just like, let's move on to the next one. We kept the pressure up.
Lots of shots and double touches and great shots from you guys, where they just happened to be in the way.
Yeah, I mean, there was one time Misty whiffed the first ball, and I come in for the shot, and he's still floating from missing the first one, and he saves it. I mean, it was just stuff like that. It just gets you a bit frustrated, but you've got to put it all away and reset in the next game. And fortunately, we got an OT win in game 2, and then it was a little bit closer than we would have liked, to be honest, but we felt we were in control of the series for the most part, and we ended up getting the win 3-1.
Yeah, that was very obvious from the fact that, after that first game, it felt a lot cleaner. Game two, it was a 0-all overtime where you had to get, a bit of an interesting touch to score the goal where they had committed hard. But after that, I think it was pretty clean games. And for Icon, obviously, that was going to put you in the undefeated. Whoever won this series was going to be undefeated, was going to all but clinch a top four spot. More so for you guys than for Justice, I think. But the win by Icon really means that it is so hard for you guys to not be top four, and now you're kind of playing for first seed.
Yeah, we're definitely competing with Chiefs now for that number one seed. We're both looking to go undefeated throughout the season, so that's going to be the interesting storyline, I guess, coming to the last week when we do play each other, if we are indeed both undefeated. But still looking to cement that top four, Yummy. We haven't, statistically quite got top four yet, but obviously once you're in top four, it's a double elimination, so seeding doesn't matter too much. Just got to win 2 games before you lose 2, and you're through.
Yeah, and double seeding isn't ever, super crucial, especially for you, knowing how you end up trying to get through to Worlds in a couple seasons past. But yeah, I think obviously I think this season there's definitely some solid advantages to the high seeds. I think, there's probably going to be a team that you're going to really like in that 3rd or 4th seed, and avoiding maybe one of the stronger teams. Maybe avoiding Renegades early on is going to be helpful. But that meant that at the end of the day, we have our final standings, and Renegades ends up being ahead of Icon. That's Renegades / ex-Chiefs. Simply because they are 1 game ahead in game differential. But Renegades have had the easier lineup so far. They've versed probably the 4 easiest teams in the competition. So, take this with a grain of salt. I think if Renegades were 12-0, then it would be a much clearer story of them being in the lead.
Yeah, I mean, Renegades have just padded their stats for the first few weeks, let's be honest. They've had literally the easiest run you could possibly get. So you'd think that Torsos has got to get a triple hat-trick in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, they've got Out of Order this week. Crucial game for Out of Order as well. But yeah, I think we've got a little bit of an easier run home, but again, I think it's all going to come down to the matchup. Us versus Chiefs for that number 1 spot. And again, it's just going to be for seeding and a bit of a momentum sort of starter for the regional finals for the championships.
Yeah, and Mprox and Team Esper, they are basically 100% out. Edge are in a very similar position, because even though they could get to 4 wins with some kind of incredible dream run, they've dropped so many games at this point and won so few that they pretty much lose any tiebreaker. So they are mostly out. I think when you looked at Nathan Allen's calculator, it has them at something around like a 7% chance of making it into 4.
Pretty much need to 3-0 everyone, don't they, I mean?
Yeah, they have to 3-0 everyone, hope for some results to go their way, that kind of stuff. Maybe hope that Out of Order only win 2 and 3 or lose, their matches, that sort of stuff. Justice Esports are looking solid to make the top 4, but they do have a hard couple of weeks as well. 1&E are looking the best, even though they don't have the best record here, because they've got a really easy week coming up, and Out of Order are looking the worst in that 3-way tiebreaker, where we could have 3 teams on 4 wins.
I mean, yeah, Out of Order, they have to play Chiefs, they have to play Justice, and the third team they have to play Yummy, or Renegades, sorry, not Chiefs. And their third matchup
is, I think it's still Mprox or something.
I think I've got it here. Yeah, Out of Order versus Mprox next week, in the last week. So pretty much Out of Order, they've got to win 2 of those games to make it. You pretty much have to get 4 and 3. It's very unlikely you go 3 and 4 and you make the top 4. So obviously Out of Order, it's a must-win game. Obviously against Chiefs, they can afford to drop it, or Renegades. but they need to take games off the Renegades, and that's going to be the interesting thing this week, I believe, Yummy, because their game differential is so bad. They do need to at least probably 3-2, you'd think.
Yeah, they need to probably at least take a game off. Obviously, a win puts them in a great spot where they can all of a sudden qualify via 5 series wins, which then will get rid of all the tiebreakers, which is fantastic for them. But their start to the season, a loss to Icon in Game 5 overtime reverse sweep, and a loss 3-0 to 1NE Esports, who is one of their biggest rivals in this tiebreaker, is the really bad spell for them. I'm just imagining them getting to the final week, maybe beating Justice Esports and needing to beat Mprox to get in the top 4.
And losing.
I could just imagine it happening. It's like there in my mind that Mprox will just cause the one upset of the season and it'll cost a team their game. Team Espa for high in there, they basically cannot make it. It would be, the biggest miracle of all time would be like having quintuple, twins, whatever that were, quintuplets. It's just not going to happen. Sextuplets. It's just not going to happen, just like my mum loving me.
Octuplets.
And finally, the
non-tuplets.
the match is coming up tomorrow is Justice vs Edge to start it off, which I think is, funnily enough, after this week with Manlet taking down Justice, not so far-fetched that Edge could take down Justice.
Exactly. And now the pressure's on Yummy. That's got to be an interesting thing. I mean, the first 3 weeks, you have a free swing at the competition. Justice breezed through 3-0. Took their first loss last week against us. What that does to their confidence or their mentality, who knows? Now they really need to fight for that number 4 spot, we're thinking, against Out of Order. If 1NE can beat Edge as well. It's going to be interesting. But again, Edge, they're still in it. They're fighting for prize money as well, if anything. So they'll be coming out swinging. Should be a good opening matchup for tomorrow.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting in terms of the potential results that come from there. But the next match starts deciding really how hard it is going to be for all of these 3 teams. Because for me, the 1NE matches, Edge and Mprox, I don't have real questions about 1NE's ability to beat Edge compared to Justice, because 1NE I think have been a bit more consistent. It's not whether 1NE are better than Justice or Justice are better than 1NE. It's just that we've seen Justice put on some poorer results over the last couple of weeks than 1NE overall. But 1NE lost to Manlet too, so you never know. Even Out of Order lost to Manlet, so realistically, maybe Justice's loss doesn't mean that much after all.
I think that Justice probably has a higher ceiling, I'd say, Yummy, but just because they just ebb and flow, and I guess 1NE sort of maintain that, a bit higher, a bit more consistent. But certainly when Justice are on, I'd back them in to beat 1NE. I think individually they're the more skilled team. I think that if it all comes together, they can be a very good team and challenge for a world championship spot. But that's the thing. Are they going to show up? And you can pretty much guarantee that 1NE are going to show up to some extent.
Yeah, the major question here is, if 1NE goes 6-0, then how do you win that tiebreaker against them? Because they've got other 3-0s as well in the bracket. They have had a good season. They have managed to get some really solid results. Even, it was a 3-0 against Out of Order, so one of their closest competition. And that's going to make it hard. Esper versus Mprox, this is kind of the battle at the bottom of the table. I think maybe for me, that's the most exciting one. Who can be the first team to be... What's the opposite of undefeated?
Oh, shit.
No, not undefeated. Who could be the first team to actually win a series?
Completely shut out.
Yeah.
It's over. Unbelievable.
And so, yeah, that's exciting for that, Mark. But actually, let's give the predictions. So, Justice versus Edge, what have you got?
Justice are going to take this one 3-1, I believe. I think that they should win. I can see them maybe dropping a game early, but then getting into the groove and getting the job done. Yeah,
I'm going to give them a 3-0. And I'm going to give 1NE in the next match a 3-0 against Edge. What have you got?
Uh, I think if Justice can win, no matter what, I think Edge will come in a little bit demoralised. One and E obviously pumped. They want to get that top four spot.
Yeah.
I think they'll 3-0. I can't. They don't really start too slow. One and E in from what I've seen this season. So I think they'll 3-0 Edge.
Yeah. And X Prime's probably more correct because defeated means that you could be defeated, once, super defeated or mega defeated, undefeated, completely defeated. Yeah. In the next one, I've got a 3-0 for 1NE. So I'm predicting all 3-0s so far.
Yeah, I think that if it is a 3-0, it's certainly going to make it interesting for Out of Order and Justice. So I think that for the beauty of the competition, let's just hope that 1NE 3-0s, they can get that third spot wrapped up. And it's all going to come down to Justice and Out of Order. Isn't that exciting?
I like Eaton's response as well. Esper versus Emprox, 3-0. 3-0 Esper.
3-0 Esper, absolutely. This is, second last game for Emprox. They don't scream. At the end of the day, that's got to be a factor. I know Yummy probably brings it up every week on the desk, but they just don't practice as a team. End of story.
It annoys the crap out of me.
So I've got to give it a 3-0 to Esper. Like maybe luck for Emprox, but 3-0 Esper.
Yeah. And then we haven't discussed this, but Icon, they're already through in essence, but if they win this series, they're 100% through. So this is a nice series for them to have because they're going to 3-0.
Yeah, I've just having a look at the percentages. We've got a 0.6% chance of not making the top four. So can't wait to nail that one. Yeah, looking forward to it. But it's hard. Esper, we're expecting a win. I said this last week with Justice. We're expecting a 3-0. Again, we want a clean 3-0. We're feeling pretty good. We're going to go into it pretty warmed up. I want to say that, we've been scrimming a fair bit lately. Esper could bring anything, though. That is the factor about Esper that not many other teams have. You might see Outlast hit about 6 musty flicks on us, and all of a sudden they're 2-0 up. So I think that the safe bet would be a 3-0 to us.
Right. And there's a question, do you think Emprox have a chance if they scrimmed and practiced? Yeah, I think they could have even made top four. It's not been a brutal competition this season, and even every other season, the team that puts in the most work typically ends up, doing the best. So, I guess conversely, the team that puts in the least work ends up doing the worst. Who knew?
Yeah, you can only really honeymoon so hard and hope that things are going to come together on the day. I mean, you have to practice your structure. You have to practice in high pressure situations, as we saw them giving away so many goals in that Edge versus Emprox series. But obviously practice is going to cost them. If they did practice, I mean, honestly, below the top two right now, everyone expected Out of Order to maybe be top two, guaranteed top four coming into the season. And honestly, as we said, they've literally had their pants pulled down, and now they are at the mercy of a few other teams. So it's interesting and it's wide open. So they should have practiced, but it's up to them.
Yeah, and the final match is going to be Renegades versus Out of Order. I think this is kind of an interesting one, considering, I guess, Renegades' result against Esper last week shows that they could lose to anyone. But Out of Order have also shown, even against Manlet, but also across the Oceanic Masters, that when the nerves get high, bad things happen. There hasn't been a week yet where someone on Out of Order, maybe even make this clearer, when one of two people on Out of Order haven't own goaled. They've got at least one own goal per week.
Yeah, look, it's not ideal. And I know that in this matchup, Chiefs Out of Order, Chiefs, they know that if they can 3-0 Out of Order, it's going to be very hard for them to make top four. And as much as we joke about Out of Order, they are a very good team, and it's not a team that you want to be playing in the top four finals, Yummy, just in case they have a very good day.
Yeah.
So I think that Chiefs will be coming into this. I know that they'll be coming in warmed up. They want to scrim us before their game. They want to come in hot. I think that they might just wipe the floor with Out of Order here, 3-0.
Yeah, well, I want to go with the theme of the day as well. So Renegades 3-0 Out of Order, because That'll be great for me. It'll be great for everyone. And also, this is kind of a day in terms of like we've got the exact same predictions, at least in terms of the teams, maybe not the direct results. But this does feel like the day where we've got some very clear results based off some pretty concrete information in the first 3 weeks. My only real upset potentials are Edge versus Justice and Out of Order against Renegades, in my opinion.
Yeah, and credit to Siki in the chat for being probably the only member to not own goal this season. So well done, Siki. You've been quite consistent in
He's
an
going to get an
inconsistent
award.
team.
Is there a player accolade to not own goaling? Sure.
Well, he's got it. He's got it.
Oh, no.
Out of Order 3-2. Who knows? I mean, Out of Order could show up, and they are a very good team when they do show up. It's just often they haven't showed up in pressure situations, you know what I mean, and on these big days. So against the number one team right now, the number one Renegades, let's see what happens. This is it. We're calling you, Siki. Show us what you got. Renegades are kind of be coming in hot. They won't be taking it lightly, so it's going to be a cracking last series of the day.
Yeah. And also, you can't get lower than losing to Manlet, so it's only up from here anyway.
Exactly.
For the final thoughts, as well as we try to wrap up tonight, if you're in the chat, ask all your questions. We're going to have some time to answer them. But final thought for you, CJ, is out of the 3 teams,
I was about to ask you, Yummy.
Out of Order, and Justice, who have you got making it?
Honestly, I think Out of Order are going to make it. I think 1NE are guaranteed pretty much the way their draw is. I mean, 2 wins this week. It's very unlikely, even if we 3-0 them next week, that they're not going to make it. So I can see 1NE. They'll wrap up that 3rd spot. We say that, order throw, Out of Order throw, but I think that they're still, when it counts, they can be still quite a solid team. I mean, Jules, he's made the World Championships. You are in a sticky situation, Siki, but the odds are against you. I will back you in. I think Out of Order are going to get a 4th spot. I think Justice will somehow find a way to stuff up.
Funny thing is, I was going to say the exact same thing. But to be a little bit different to you, I'm going to go with the 1NE. I think 1NE, both of us have to put them in there. They seem clear-cut because of tomorrow's matches. They should 100% win them, and they should 100% get them into, that almost 100%, in the top 4. And Out of Order are not in the best position. Justice Esports, even though you say they can throw from anywhere, I also see them clutching from anywhere too. So let's throw Justice Esports. That's actually the easy way out too, because technically they are more likely to make it. But still, Out of Order have some pretty easy matchups too to come up. In week 5, for those who don't know, their matchups is Justice have to verse Renegades, but it shouldn't be a match that really matters. And then there's a Justice up against Out of Order. And obviously, if Out of Order lose to Renegades, if Justice Esports just beat Out of Order, they're just through. But on the other side, if Out of Order beat Justice, that doesn't guarantee they're through. So that's the hard matchup there.
And that's the added pressure, I guess, for Out of Order. I mean, when Justice, if they come into that match knowing, if we say take 2 games off, we're still through. There's a little bit less pressure, but then Out of Order, it's one thing to win a series of this caliber against a team that's, competing with you on par at the moment. But it's another thing to go into the matchup thinking we can't drop a game because, you can always forget about a game and move on, clear your head for the next series and go, we'll just win this series. No matter what, we'll win it. But if they need to win a 3-1 or a 3-0, that added pressure might cost them.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I look forward to tomorrow, but really looking forward to the final week to see how everything pans out. That's the end of the OCE recap. Thank you, CJCJ. You're beautiful as always.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching.